This is Women for Gun Rights with your host Amanda Suffecool, part of the DC Project.
See where we're at. So, hey, Theresa. So, I was just starting to tell folks about you. So, Theresa Inacker is the New Jersey State Delegate for the DC Project, and she is absolutely amazing in everything that I'm a fan. I'm a huge fan. And by the time we're done with this hour, you too will be a fan of all things Theresa, because I mean, just the more that you peel back, the more depth and just knowledge and intelligence, and just so she's beautiful, she's smart, and she's motivated, she's driven, and it's just a great package. So Theresa, you are the New Jersey delegate. So start with telling us, how did you find the DC Project?
Hi, thank you so much. I'm so flattered by everything you just said, really, and very humbled too. So I am a trustee of the Coalition of New Jersey Firearm Owners. So working through them, that's how I found the DC Project, actually. One of our other trustees suggested that I, reach out, and he kind of, put my name forward and thought that I would be a good candidate to be the delegate for New Jersey. So that's how that worked out. And of course I was happy to, and it's been a great ride ever since, that's for sure.
So you're like, hey, what are you volunteering me for?
Yes, I know, but the more I looked at the amazing house, so our leadership is fantastic, and all the other women delegates are fantastic too. So it's great. It really is like finding my tribe. I know that might be hard for people to understand, but especially as a female in, the Second Amendment, constantly on the defense in New Jersey, it's really amazing to find other women who are really like-minded and, really support the same principles that I fight for. So I literally found my tribe, and it's been amazing.
Yeah, I think Holly Sullivan from Connecticut, she was like, I was amazed. I found women that are just like me. And for years, I'd never found anybody like me. So yeah, I feel the same way. I mean, the caliber of women that is part of the DC Project, it just keeps getting better and better. The more that you meet them and talk to them and work with them. So so how did your Second Amendment story, how did that get started? Because I mean, you were involved in the Coalition for New Jersey Firearms, CNJFO, and how did you get there?
I was involved with another New Jersey state group that was very active for a long while, New Jersey Second Amendment Society, and their leadership changed, and the group wasn't that active. I'm still, very friendly with the one individual who is working with them, so everything is cool there. But I needed a little bit more, just more hands-on action when I was ready for it. So CNJFO was started, I think about, maybe years ago or so. And I decided to, start working with them. They seem to need, the help, and it's been just fantastic. So I try to get my hand can with them. We have a bunch of state groups. We have, the NRA affiliate, ANJRPC. We have all different groups in different parts of the state. It's a very long state, north and south, and so it can seem like two totally different states altogether, different interests up north versus the south. And so, there's kind of like something for everybody, and that's how I got started with them. It's been great.
Okay, so your history, your backstory, who you are, or a portion of who you are, not all of who you are, is that you are an attorney. And so not only are you an attorney who is licensed to practice in New Jersey, but you also practice in New York and at the Supreme Court level. So how did
Right.
yeah.
I'm admitted to practice law in New York, New Jersey, the federal district courts in New Jersey, and the Supreme Court of the United States. So maybe someday I'll get to actually handle a case before the SCOTUS. That would be a dream come true for me. But being admitted there, just going there and actually, being a part of the subject matter of a motion before the court, and actually getting to meet a few of the justices, that was amazing. I was able to bring my daughter with me when I was admitted, and we met in a small group with Chief Justice Roberts and with Ruth Bader Ginsburg. So my daughter was, she was maybe about 9 or 10 at the time. I don't know that she fully understood who they were, but I told her, just pay attention because someday you're going to understand. And it was neat. And, ideologically necessarily agree with them, but that does not lessen my respect for them or anybody else.
Right. I mean, and I think that's a great point, that you can have the utmost respect for someone who philosophically disagrees with a point of view that you've got, but you can still respect the fact that they actively work toward what they believe. If so as hard as I work or you work toward the Second Amendment, I respect people who kind of have a different view and are willing to work for it. I disagree with them and I will argue with them, but I respect the fact that they have that opinion and the right to that opinion. Does that make sense?
Absolutely. For me, I respect their right, and anybody who wants to stand up for what they believe in, I admire them for that. We can disagree substantively, but at the end of the day, we're more like each other than other people. So your adversary is literally in the same profession as you. Your adversary is performing the same job as you. You have more in common than you don't. And so, I also have some friends that don't agree with my stances on, the Second Amendment and carry. And so they help me actually sharpen my arguments. They help me understand where they're coming from, because you'll never make any headway with someone if you don't really understand where they're coming from. So they actually help me, hone my skills. Mm-hmm.
That makes so much sense, because it's first we strive to understand, then you can have an argument about it. If you don't understand, the argument doesn't hold water at all. So
absolutely, and I love to argue, so don't misunderstand me. But
okay, so you picked being a lawyer because you love to argue, or you honed the skill after you became the lawyer?
I've always been somebody who believed in causes, even my parents when I was younger had pointed that out to me. So I always have one cause or another, and it's just a matter of having a deep sense of a longing for justice, and, that maximizes our human experience, and always wanting to be an advocate for other people, like beating up the school bully for my friend in the second grade with my Snoopy lunchbox. So. Okay.
She was wielding the metal arm of justice, if you will.
It's been in me forever. So, yeah, I think it's just my personality and how I'm driven. I'm just really driven toward justice and what I think is right. And I like to, the Constitution, I'm in love with the Constitution. I served Constitutional Law Journal in law school. There are different journals people can join, and it might be, a general one, but it could be for, we had a sports law journal, somebody, you could be on that one. I was on the Constitutional Law Journal. And actually, I wrote an article about First Amendment commercial speech, First Amendment rights in New Jersey. So, I love the Constitution from the bottom to the top, and, but 2A seems to be really the enforcement mechanism as far as I'm concerned, and it's under a critical attack. So,
oh my. Now, I want to ask you this. There's a lot of people who are saying that we are under more of an attack on the Second Amendment than we have ever been before. And then the counter argument to that is, well, not really, because we're just pushing it to states' rights, and the states are doing a lot of things that the federal government is not recognizing or noticing or seeing or whatever. What's your thought on that?
That's interesting because the state of affairs in New Jersey is pitiful when it comes to Second Amendment rights, right? And I've wondered, and I tried to do some research into legislative history, like how the heck did we end up like this? Like who, where were our guardians of the Constitution? Where were prior generations? Why did they allow it to get like this? And it was really hard to find. It seemed to be, it morphed incrementally over time, and that's always a threat. And it's kind of like that slow boil, I think, is how it developed for us. I think now you see more outward attacks, definitely just some more outward attacks, and they'll just come straight out and say, fine, now we're down to a 10-round limit. Now we're doing this. We ban that and ban this. And it just seems to ratchet itself up. And that's problematic. And I think for states that haven't been challenged before, they need to pay attention to what happens in states like mine. And they have to understand that we're objecting, but once the horse is out of the barn, or whatever the expression is, once it's gone, and once that right, it's nearly impossible to recover it without extensive litigation. And so you have to prevent that. It's too late for us. We need to now pursue litigation and come at them in every direction and be aggressive that way. But for other states who haven't, they need to really pay attention and make sure that they knock down and attack every single law that gets proposed that attacks their rights. It's just it seems to be exponentially getting more aggressive, in my opinion. I don't exactly know why. Perhaps because of the formation of groups like Bloomberg's, Moms Demand in Every Town, that kind of thing. And I'm sure there are elements in political circles where they have ulterior agendas. Who knows? It could be an international agenda.
Yeah, I agree. So why don't you fill folks in a little bit on some of the rules that apply to New Jersey that don't necessarily apply to some of the other, to use Charlie Cook's term, other states that are in free America.
Exactly. I call it free America also. We have a desire to get to free America. So we're trying to change New Jersey and make it free. But so some of the rules here, you cannot get a carry permit here unless you prove that you have justifiable need, and self-defense is not justifiable need. So self-defense is not recognized as really as a lawful purpose here. And it's rather ridiculous if you think about it. It violates the laws of human nature. So you have to prove justifiable need. Less than 0.1% of gun owners in New Jersey have carry permits. The ones who have carry permits,
what do they consider justifiable need then? What's their explanation?
There's no black and white rule. It's arbitrary and capricious. It's ambiguous on purpose. And if a law is made to be ambiguous, that's so that the government can abuse it against you. That is the true ambiguous subject to it can be. And so they like it that way. There's a case of a guy who was kidnapped several times, mistaken identity, was kidnapped, and he applied for a carry permit, and they said that was not enough, that he did not meet justifiable need. So we really say that
multiple kidnappings, multiple times that he was mistaken for someone else that someone really felt the need to have, and it's not good enough.
Yes, not good enough. Really, you have to be connected, as they say. You have to be in certain position. It's really active. The police chief in the town, judges, and who knows what the standard really is. And they also put people through the ringer too. So they do everything administratively to stop you. But if I said, if I could tell you really what does it mean, it depends on who you ask. And so how can I qualify for that? They want you to have imminent and proven threats, but really, short of prior attacks on your life, I mean, even then, it's just not good enough. So depending on who you ask. So that's a huge problem. That issue is going to be dealt with. The parallel issue to that, really a very similar, analogous issue, will be dealt with in the New York State Rifle and Pistol Association case. So that should make a difference for us here in New Jersey.
Okay, wait. When you say the case, this means it's a case that's headed to the Supreme Court, has been accepted in the Supreme Court. What is it?
Yes, it is. It's actually been accepted by the Supreme Court. Hooray!
Okay.
Finally, after how long? Okay, we can talk about that too. But they finally agreed to a case, and it will have substantive impact on how people are issued permits in states like ours, where they require justifiable need or good cause or the other names they like to make up for it. Either I have a right to defend myself or don't. To me, it's very white, but they like to mudders and make it impossible. So in New York, they have a similar challenge going on. The Supreme Court accepted that case, and they will rule on that. And it absolutely will happen here in New Jersey and quite possibly elsewhere.
Okay, so that's it's interesting. I mean, because I know that CNJFO says that New Jersey fights. They fight the fight to the Supreme Court level to support all of the other states because they have some of the worst laws, and so that they can get it to the Supreme Court level faster, easier. So New York, New Jersey seem to be the cases that are headed in that direction.
Yes, we've tried many times. We've supported so many cases going up, and we have there's actually a petition right now out of New Jersey. We have a 10-round magazine limit. And so, the day it was signed, the case was filed in federal court, and it's been bouncing around through courts, which happens, takes years. That was in 2018, and we're still trying to deal with that. And so my mags are, in another state under storage right now for me because I refused to turn them in. Nobody turned any in. From what I understand, that one magazine was turned into the state. So that should be their first hint about compliance. But
there's a big stack of them on the borders, right? Is that what?
Yeah, exactly. Or you have to find people or friends who are willing to hold them for you. But so that case was filed in 2018, and actually there's a petition for the Supreme Court to take that case. We don't know if they're going to take it. I don't think they're going to take any more Second Amendment cases, at least until they finish this one. And perhaps the holding in this case, the New York case, which is also known as Bruin right now, it used to be known as Corlett, but the general changed, and I believe it's the Attorney General, and the name is Bruin now. So the Bruin case might actually have some impact on our MAG case. Sounds kind of crazy, but it's possible that the holding could be a state is allowed to do A, B, and state not to do A and Z actually apply to the MAG ban. So the magazine limits are another unique, kind of more unique thing for New Jersey. We also have a requirement for firearms purchase ID cards, and then permits to purchase handguns, and you can only buy one handgun a month with a permit. Every single time you want to get one, you have to get another permit, but you can only buy one gun a month.
Wow. So most people use that as a bumper sticker. One gun a month is not just a rule. It's a good idea. No, I think they were just saying you need to buy 12 a year, not the other way around, but okay.
I hear ya. Yeah, but you can't buy more than one at a time unless you get an exemption.
So, so when you have to go get a permit to be able to buy the gun, how long does the permit take? The purchase permit.
That's. Did I just do an eye roll? I think I did.
I think I did. Out loud. Yeah, out loud.
How long does the permit take? The statute requires that it be processed in 30 days. But rarely is it done in 30 days. It varies from town to town. I think there are over 500 municipalities in New Jersey. So it varies from town to town, depends where you live, whether you're, treated fairly and according to the statute or not. So actually CNJFO filed a lawsuit with FPC to try to knock down the permitting scheme because the delays are absolutely ridiculous. The last time I applied for handgun permits, this is me already having a firearms purchase ID card and already having purchased handguns in the past. But the last time I applied for a set of those permits, it took 6.5 months to get them.
Oh, wow. So
And the statute says
one
you
a
have
month.
30 days.
So does that mean that every 30 days you apply for a new one? Because you can keep that.
You can apply
one a month?
you can apply for multiple at a time. So, and now all of a sudden, after we filed the lawsuit, they changed to a digital format. And I personally haven't applied for permits since they went to a digital format, but I know that they'll automatically extend them because they're only days. And you can only use one every 30 days. So they try to make it as convoluted as possible. And the rest of free America is like, excuse me, the Second Amendment is my permit. I'm going to purchase a handgun. Like, I just don't understand why it has to be so complicated unless it is meant to be a barrier to gun ownership.
Right.
That's what it is.
Yeah. No, I do not disagree with you. Okay, so people had heard the name Corlett versus the New York State, not New York State Rifle and Pistol, was it? Yeah.
Right, the New York State Rifle and Pistol Association.
Against Corlett, and so now it's Bruin, so they renamed it. Okay, I didn't catch that. I had not heard that part.
Yeah,
okay.
I know. And I think if you refer to it as Bruin, either way, it's gonna, people will know now what you're talking about. But they updated the name. Just so you know.
Got it. So when we start talking about Supreme Court cases, you can't talk about Second Amendment Supreme Court cases without talking about Dick Heller. And
yes.
And when you say, that it's taken, it's 3 years and it's working through the courts, the Heller case took 13 years to weave its way through the courts before they finally heard it. And the thing that absolutely amazed me, was that they did not make a decision about the fact that you have the right to own a gun in your own home until 2008. So, everybody who's American is like, no, we have a right. We have this right. And it was never, everybody's interpreted it slightly differently. Every state's done something a little different. So some states did, some states didn't. And until the DC Heller case, it hadn't gone through the courts.
Well, I think in a way, it's always been our tradition, and anybody who will look sincerely and genuinely at our history ends that firearms ownership has been part of our history and it predates our country, and so it's axiomatic, it's obvious, it's absolutely obvious that gun ownership as an individual is part of our history and tradition and how we founded this country. And so that to be foundation, it's almost like it's so obvious that it doesn't need to be acknowledged. And so, unfortunately, with all the attacks, now it does have to be acknowledged, right? So, okay, if you're going to attack us, then we're going to get this bright line. And that's what you want from courts. You really want bright lines. You want them to say in black and white to say something. And you don't want the justices, going off and starting to say all this gray stuff, because then your opponents will be like, aha, see? Like, Scalia's famously like, well, it's not without limit. Oh, see, it's not without limit. So that means we can do it in detail. So it used to be crafted carefully. Actually, my prayer is that when they decide this case, that it is so well written and that it's bulletproof, because our, more liberal lawmakers are going to try to find ways. They will find any little weakness in that decision and they'll exploit it. And then we'll be fighting and relitigating that all over again. But so, yeah, obviously when the states push, people are going to push back. Good people are going to stand up. They're willing to put their names to cases. They're willing to file them. They're willing to support the cases. And, you can't let them get away with it. You can't let tyrants get away with it. You have to stand up to them. So, you have to use your three branches. That's the way this country's set up. We have three branches to resolve our conflicts. And this is what you do is you redress your grievances. And so thankfully for Heller, we have that in 2008. And then McDonald was, I think, 2010.
Yeah, it was 2 years after. Yeah. So the Heller case took 13 years to weave through the courts. McDonald took 2 years.
Right. So McDonald pretty much like applies Heller to the states. It's like sometimes there's an argument of like, oh, well, that's only a federal. That doesn't stand. No, it actually does apply to you. This is what's going to happen with the Bruin case, right? I can see it now. There'll be a ruling, hopefully a favorable 2A ruling, and then New Jersey's going to say, oh, well, that doesn't apply to us. And we're going to say, oh, yes, it does. Yes, it does. Rulings from the Supreme Court apply to you, whether you like them or not.
So take that. So I know that you have had on multiple cases met and interacted with Dick Heller. So one of them, we stood in the hallway outside of the judicial hearings for the assault weapons ban. And then you've had other occurrences. So tell us about your meetings with Dick Heller.
Yeah, Dick is a friend of mine now, actually. So I first met him in the halls of Congress there at the in the House assault quote unquote assault weapons ban hearing, and it was just so to meet him. I'm like, this is like a real person, actually, down and more of a normal sort of like just an average person in a lot of ways than I expected him to be. And he's eccentric. I'm going to tell you that much. And I say that in the most loving way. But we all are, right? We all have our little things that we do. And so meeting him has just been, wow, this is Heller. So that was amazing first meeting him. And then we started chatting ever since then. Anytime something would come up in a case or we filed something, I would text him or he would text me and then we would chat, that kind of thing. So we always keep each other updated when something gets filed and like, hey, did you see what we did? And he'll be like, yeah, it's great. Keep going. He's kind of like a cheerleader for us in the background too, which is awesome. And so then in May, I asked him if he would come up to do a fundraiser for the DCProject. And he said, of course he would. And I was like, this is awesome. So part of that was because people in New Jersey, lose all the time. And we're always fighting and always on the defense here, that I really thought that it would be, people would feel buoyant about having him come here and having this amazing person of victory to come here and lift everybody and show that eventually it pays off when you keep fighting. And so that was how we started with the May 15th fundraiser.
Well, it was amazing. I mean, and it's such a coup to bring Dick Heller in to say, your keynote speaker is the Dick Heller. There's no doubt about it. So even for people who didn't come, they were all like, darn it, I didn't make it. But Dick Heller was there, And so, you've met him, I've met him, and we know that he's really, really human, really funny. It's great to be able to put him out in front of other people and for them to see kind of what a deep thinker he is, what's important to him, where the history is that he wants to discuss, and just to be able to know and say that I've interacted with somebody that I believe is one of the keystones in American history for the Second Amendment.
Absolutely. One thing about Dick is he's so humble and he can't see it himself, but he is the 2A history. Yet, if you talk to him about something, he wants to talk to you about more history. And none of it includes himself. And I'm like, okay, telling me about all these different, throughout time. And he'll go way back into, the 1400s and even before that.
Right. Yeah.
And to tell you all the history, and I learned so much from him. It's the most amazing thing. But I'm like, but you do realize that you are our history too. Like, you're the one that has the most impact. It's like we have recognized an individual, to firearms ownership. And so he's just so humble. He literally can't see it himself. It's amazing. So I do like to talk to him about that, and then he just quickly changes the subject. So, but I know that you know him too, and he does that.
Does that. The funny part is you'll see him. He rides his bicycle around DC. So a lot of the time you will, if you're doing something, he'll just pedal in and here he goes. And I talked him into speaking at one of the DCProject rallies that we had on the Capitol lawn, and it was raining. And Dick comes riding up on his bicycle wearing a garbage bag that he'd cut holes in, and it was just
I know.
It just cracked me up.
That it's so funny because if you said that about a person, I would absolutely, that's something he would do. And he would do it. But he's also the kind of person that's like, well, I'm going to get it done. And I appreciate that. So he's going to get it done. If that means wearing a garbage bag to get to the rally, that's what he's going to do.
That's it.
Yeah, he is. Yeah. He is such a character. It's unbelievable. And he seems to be a huge, really a huge supporter for DCProject. So I'm just very appreciative of that. And I know that in his spare time that he does train women on a volunteer basis. So firearms training. So he's really a great guy.
He's a great guy, and we are blessed to have him in our circle. There's no doubt about it. So you had him come from DC down to New Jersey where you were doing your fundraiser. So how did the fundraiser come about, and how did it turn out?
Oh, it turned out great. I think it was the best, fundraising amount wise for DCProject that's been done today. So I've already set in my mind, I have another goal that I have to beat for myself, right? I have to do better next time. So, but it was fantastic. And I just started asking around. I had a friend offer that we could use her property to have fundraisers because she had fundraisers for people, for other kids, and would be to do it. And she wanted to support women for gun rights. So I was like, this is awesome. I have to take advantage of it. And so we met a few times and got an idea for how to handle it. And I asked CNJFO if they would sponsor the food, so that I could just kind of get started with it. And of course, those guys voted yes to do that. They were so happy to do it. And so they were our biggest sponsor, and they really helped us get it going. So then it was a matter of hands-on asking, people to come and help out, and from doing everything. If people volunteered to do the flowers, people volunteered to string the lights, all these things. So that was how it went off. We had Gabby Franco joined us as well. And after Dick said yes, I was like, well, you know what, let's ask. And I remember talking to you because I was kind of like, I don't know what I'm doing here. I don't really know how to run a fundraiser with some VIPs from out of town. And so I remember your advice telling me, just ask, did you ask? If you need something, then ask for it. And so I started to adopt that attitude that anything I needed along the way, I just asked for it, and which is kind of contrary to my own personal philosophy, right? I have trouble with that. But I did just ask people if they were willing to do something, to sponsor, to donate something, and pretty much everybody said yes. It was amazing. So it was just great. It was such a great time.
It really was a great time. You had DCProject gals come from all over the East Coast to come to New Jersey to support you. And so we got to see it firsthand. But, back to the just ask, the real issue is there's so many people who believe in the fight that you're fighting. They believe in the fight the DCProject is fighting. And they're like, how can I help? So when you offer them an opportunity, and they can say yes or they can say no, but you offer them an opportunity and kind of a chunk to say, would you help with this? They're all like, let me figure out how I can do that. Let me figure out how I can be of help, because I'm helping in a little bit of something that is way bigger than I am.
Yes, I do. I also think that they're more likely I think they see us as women for gun rights as a more effective communicators in this regard. I really do think that it's an image that everybody can grasp, because even if you're not into firearms, and I had people at the fundraiser who know nothing about guns at all, nothing about gun rights, but they support women who want to, to do this. So that angle has a value to it, added value to what we're doing. And that's part of what people kind of like, they can't say no, which is awesome. So I think everybody should ask, and everybody else should do this too. Just keep asking, because it's very hard to say no to us when we're really asking you to support the cause, because they also recognize that we have skin in the game, and we spend a lot of our personal time and talent and effort in this regard on their behalf. And so you do it gratefully. You're not doing it because you want them to pay you back for it. But I think people just recognize that. They know if you're genuine about it. They know if you're effective. And if you are, they definitely want to support that. And a lot of people here in New Jersey stay, in the closet, so to speak, on gun rights. They don't want to talk about it because they're afraid of losing their jobs. They don't tell their families even that they have guns. They don't tell anybody. And people message me all the time on the slide, I want to apply, I don't know how to do it. And these are people that you never, ever see speak publicly for 2A, but they're interested in helping. So you want to tap those people as well. And we give them the perfect opportunity to do that, to catch that group of people that may be curious, or they really secretly do support you, and they're very happy to do it. So it was, it's good.
Yeah, it's really good. I that brings to mind to me the statement that Thomas Massie, Congressman from Kentucky, who is he is the co-chair of the Second Amendment Caucus, and he invited a group of the DCProject girls to DC to talk to his fellow congressmen about guns and gun rights, because he, at least in my perception of his thoughts, it is the fact that well-dressed, well-spoken, well-educated women are going to get a message across in a way that it would be easily discounted by a big burly guy in a plaid shirt. And so they're like, yeah, those are
Right.
just that. But it changes the dynamic. But I want you to hear this, and we're going to talk about it right after this, okay? So hang steady. This is Congressman Thomas Massie out of Kentucky.
Hi, I'm Congressman Thomas Massie. I'm co-chair of the Second Amendment Caucus. I am so excited that the DCProject came here this evening. We've never had a turnout of this many congressmen for a Second Amendment Caucus meeting before in my life. And these ladies were so compelling. The members who were here, I could see they were really engaged. There's some members who are here who they're pro-Second Amendment, but they don't really know how to articulate or how to motivate our argument for the Second Amendment. But these ladies actually gave us a voice today. And I know we're going to be able to make better arguments in our hearings, on the floor, in debates. And I know we're going to be able to hold the line because DCProject came here tonight.
Going to be able to hold the line because the DCProject
That's awesome.
came. And so that was an opportunity to tell some of the DCProject stories to Congress, or to a few of the congressmen. There were more than 40 congressmen and women who RSVP'd back, saying that they were coming. So there were some that in and out, but we really got an opportunity to talk. And so you kind of live in the belly of the beast, and then you talk at the Supreme Court level. So what is your thought on women talking Second Amendment, talking guns, and that dynamic, and how well is it received?
It's a great question, and I loved hearing that from him. We have our representatives, so we can't expect them to do all the heavy lifting when we're really the subject matter experts, right? So we need to be a resource for them. we need to be somebody, you want them to call us when they have a question. So they should get to know who you are. And you could say, if he has a question about something, he's going to call, Diana, he's going to call you. He's going to call somebody that he can trust as a resource on how to proceed with this, because we do live in the belly of the beast, and we live it. And this is what we, eat and breathe, right? So we have to be a resource. We have to support them. And we do it, through the view, the feminine view. And I think that's very important, because most of the people on the other side, they put forward that, the feminine view is anti-gun, and that is not true. That is absolutely not the truth. And so we need to not only defend against that absolute untruth, but we also need to be a positive resource. We need to be on the offense. It's very hard to do with this, but you have to be on the offense and say, I will talk to you about this, how this impacts my life. I can tell you why a 10-round mag limit isn't good for me because I live alone with my child. And what do I do when I have multiple people breaking into my house at night? So that's my point of view, might be very different than someone else's. And so even for those people at that high level, they still need help. They need our support. They need our knowledge and our passion for this. And it really is, I think you just have to make it as easy as you can for them, and for you to be a trusted resource as well. So your credibility is there, and we do have the credibility. So many women in the DC Project, the stories are unbelievable, and the credibility is unmatched. So there's a big difference between the credibility of women who have decided that they need firearms based upon their life experiences versus, Bloom's, AstroTurf group being funded and having some kind of, I'll say, I don't want to say derogatory things personally about them, but it's a different experience. The credibility is completely different.
They have a scripted platform, if you will. And so there's not as much overall, I don't know how to say it, but it's the depth of it. Because when you make a decision that you're going to do this was a journey, this was a path that you took. It wasn't a social one. It was, I'm going to navigate through this and then figure out where I'm at and what I'm doing. And that's how firearms ownership is. But when you're on the other side, it's, let's go have coffee and let's talk about what the script says. And let's talk about how we counter it, and it's like.
And I can tell you, as far and I've been hearings in Trenton, every time there was a bill being proposed, I was there, and I would testify. I've been doing this for years, over 10 years now. And Moms Demand groups were there with their matching red shirts, and it was mostly all female. And our guys were mostly, all guys. And no offense to them, and I love camo too, and I love my flannels, but it's mostly guys in their flannels and their camo and their hats. And what happens is, it's a stark contrast. So your legislators are looking back at the crowd and they see this. So, of course, I talked to some of the Moms Demand women. I asked them if they wanted to come to the range with me. I spoke with the head Karen, one of those. And I said to her, asked her if she was interested. I told her I'd be more than willing to do that. And she was like, no, I'm afraid. And I'm like, what are you afraid of? And she turned around and pointed to all the guys, and they were all sitting all together. It was like a big group of big guys. And she said, that's what I'm afraid of. And I realized just the image alone of having all those guys versus all these women, it's just enough to have this tension in the room. It looks unbalanced, and it's used for people who well in the emotional realm, like some of our legislators do. It's all they need. That's all they need to hook onto, is to say, oh, it's the women, it's the moms, and moms are very powerful, right? So it is, guys. And that's really what the imagery does matter. So it really is. And for her to tell me, she just pointed to them and said, that's what I'm afraid of. And I'm like, you know what, guys? I went over there. I'm like, we need to stagger the way we're sitting. We need to plop some women in between here and kind of spread out a little bit. And
A little
You
less
know,
camo, a
it's
little less plaid, a little less hunter orange. Yeah, got it. Like,
right, right.
yes.
And like I said, I love all those things, and I have them myself. So
You just
not
tell them
discriminatory, but
you can't wear camo because then they can't see you.
exactly. I know, I love that. But yeah, it matters. And I noticed that, when women get up there to speak, they do listen a little bit better. So it's just a
Right.
different argument. And I've always tried to make the argument specifically from a woman's point of view, because we could all get up there and I can say, it says shall not be infringed. We know that, and everybody said that 20 times. And it's like, well, I'd like to talk to you about how it impacts me, me as a single parent, that kind of thing. So,
Right. I think
so
that
yes, the stories are important.
and we get that from some of our congressmen. It says, I want to be able to relay this, and if you can give me a story, something that'll stick in my brain that I can use, that helps me. If you just give me data and facts, you people tune you out. So you need to tie the data and facts to emotion in a manner to be persuasive. Um, so when we were
Yes.
at the Second Amendment caucus with Congressman Massey and Congresswoman Boberg and Louis Gohmert, and I mean there was just so many. It was Jim Jordan. It was just so amazing. And the DC Project gals each got to say a little bit of something, and I was the anchor. I was the wrap up. I was the kind of push them through so we hit the time zone. And mine is my statement that I try, if I can only say some little short statement, it is that the bad guy gets to pick the time, the place, the circumstances, and the victim. And that I get to pick my tool of self-defense and the amount of training that I have. But I get to pick my tool of self-defense if the government should allow it. And as I rolled that out, Congressman Massey came to me later and he's like, "Can I use that? Can I say that?" I'm like,
Love it.
You've got it. You're right. I'll gift it to you." And he was like, "That gave me goosebumps because it really is the statement." I mean, so we're really only looking to, not only, but women a lot look to carry a gun for self-defense so that things don't happen to them, don't happen to their families. And so that's what the fight is about, is fighting and preserving and protecting their right not to be a victim.
Right. And that's fantastic. And that it really is that, and I hope to hear him use that. I definitely will be on the lookout to hear that. It's a great, great statement. And for me, it's like we always, to make decisions about our body. And so, my question to them is usually, and I did this when I went on one of the shows with Cuomo, actually. I said, do I have a right to defend my body in the manner I choose without government interference? And everybody looked at me and they don't know what to say. And it's like, this is my body. This is what I'm saying to you, that I want to defend my body in the manner that I choose to do it. I'm not saying that I want to destroy someone else's body in the manner that I choose to do it. We already have laws against that. What I'm saying is I want to defend my body in the manner I choose without the government interfering. And that is really what is happening to us. The government is interfering and stopping. They're putting a value on my life. They're putting a value on my child's life. My life is worth defending, whether they agree or not. Obviously, they don't agree. So that's the first, right out of the gate, you realize what they really are conveying to you is that your life is not worth defending. Their lives are worth defending because they have their own private security, of course, but yours is not. And it really is hard to not feel defensive when you know that somebody feels that way about you. So,
Right.
it is my right, whether they agree or not. And we'll just have to keep fighting this out until we get a bright line rule from the court.
Right. So let's talk about that just a smidge. When you say, that they decide something that is more important, or they decide what is important, and they decide. So I'm going to toss something completely different. Just this week, we've heard that the UN Arms Trade Treaty is now officially back on the table. So let me give everybody a backstory just a little bit, and then I'd like to discuss it. So in 2013, John Kerry, then Secretary of State, had gone to the UN and had committed that the United States would get involved in the Arms Trade Treaty and that we would honor it. And so he signed it on behalf of the United States and brought it back. And the UN believed at that point that it was a done deal. And our Senate's like, oh, no, it is a treaty, and all treaties need to be ratified by the Senate. And so it sat in committee or in a stack waiting, just as a lady in waiting, for more than 6 years, because they didn't believe that they had enough signatures to be able to pass it in the Senate. And then in 2019, President Donald Trump made a statement that said that he was going to pull us back out of that. But since the only way to do it is to go to the Senate and have it voted on, they didn't do that. He made the then current Secretary of State unsign the treaty and send it back saying, yeah, no, the United States is not interested in playing. And so we unsigned the treaty, sent it back, and that's where it stood. Now the new administration is saying that they are very interested, and they've actually sent someone to go and make a statement for us that they're interested in renewing that and bringing it back. So your thoughts?
Yeah, I'm not surprised by this, and the irony is just like really unparalleled. After we left all these arms and other equipment in Afghanistan, and now all of a sudden they want to create and participate in this treaty that would require effectively a registry of small arms transfers that would impact the individual gun owner in this country. And they would maintain that list for 10 years, I believe. So it's just amazingly, ironic. I'm not surprised. Biden said that gun control was going to be one of his first things. It's an attack on us. I don't believe that I'm subject to the laws of the UN. I mean, especially if it's not a ratified treaty, I don't know how they're going to get it through. I guess you need 2/3 of the Senate for that to ratify a treaty. So it's problematic in that it could be just another, this is what the gun control lobby, as they're called. This is what Moms Demand and Bloomberg and the antis, they want this. They want this. They want more of a stranglehold on us. They want more records. They want registries. And, registries are meant for one thing. So we have to resist this. We absolutely have to resist it. It's a big problem, and hopefully it wouldn't make it through the Senate ratification. But yeah, I'm not surprised at all. And really, I think the rest of the world, really, they secretly envy us for our gun ownership. It keeps the power in the hands of the people. And our government needs to remember that we are the ones, really, this government belongs to us, we the people. The power is in our hands. They are our representatives. They are not, they're not our authoritarians who get to dictate how we live our lives. They're restraints as prescribed in the Constitution. So I think the rest of the world, they envy us for our gun ownership. I think maybe it frightens them a little bit too. They know that it keeps us from being completely vulnerable. It's almost like you have a micro level of gun ownership, that micro level of being vulnerable as an individual. I want to defend my body. But we also have a macro level to 2A. And that's what we're talking about here. Mm-hmm. This is part of what keeps us from being vulnerable to attacks as well on the homeland. So it's that micro level and macro level thing going on here. And I think Biden would try to attack us on both levels. I
don't disagree. Way. And I also think that embedded in that treaty is the fact that the UN then has a right to enforce it on U.S. soil. So the thought that a U.S. president will invite and welcome blue helmets onto the United States streets to enforce a law that's on a national level, or it's on a worldwide level,
Right.
is just so abhorrent to so many Americans that I can't even imagine where they think that this will be acceptable to the American population.
Yeah, it won't be. And there'll be a time when people will stand up and resist, obviously. And that would definitely be a moment, I think, in my humble, that would be a great moment, people to stand up and resist that. Are we sovereign or are we not? Are we or are we not? Are we a republic or are we not? And as far as I'm concerned, we are a republic, and my individual rights matter. And it's going to be quite a challenge. I think you do have to question. I do question some. I don't want to get into it too much with politics because we don't want to. We really don't want to go down the rabbit hole there. But I do question the impacts, even if they are unintended consequences. They could be intended consequences. Obviously, if he's intending for blue helmets to come because they want to confiscate our firearms, then shame on him for that. But even if it's an unintended consequence because all he wants to do is virtue signal to his party and to his donors, well, shame on him anyway for that. So you have to always look at your unintended consequences as well. I don't know if they're not doing that, or if this is what they want to do and they want to relinquish sovereignty. Well, then, we're going to be rewriting history, I guess.
Oh, I know. So that brings my head right back around to the Supreme Court, because when you talk about intended consequences, unintended consequences, the ability to look into a topic that is so much deeper, I mean, that was really the superpower of Antonin Scalia. And so I am so interested in seeing what the new Supreme Court justices will do with these cases and how they will make their statements and what thought is behind them. I mean, I have such high hopes, and yet, it's like, do I hold my breath or don't I? Because what's it going to be?
Right. I think we always have to stay in optimism. We absolutely do. So you don't ever know what a court is going to do. I mean, this is like rule number one of what you learn. You never promise or you never know what they're going to do. And so we don't know what they're going to do, but we can look at what they've done in the past and try to make an educated, have an educated idea of what they'll do. With Amy Coney Barrett, I believe that she crafted a decision in one Second Amendment case, and a state was trying to deny a felon, a convicted felon who had served his time, trying to deny him his Second Amendment rights. His felony was, I believe, a commercial marketing, like a false advertising charge. So it wasn't a violent crime. It was a crime, but it wasn't a violent crime. And she literally, split the hairs on that and said, there's a difference between a violent criminal and nonviolent, and he is not violent. And when they said that, felons shouldn't have these rights or exercise their right, they meant somebody who's violent, not someone who has committed a commercial speech fraud kind of thing. So she ruled in favor of 2A on that. I'm very hopeful on that one. I really am hopeful that it gives me an indication. And she's such an amazing thinker. I mean, do you remember when she had the pad of paper? They were asking her 20 million questions, and they said, so hold up your paper, and there was not one note on it. And I'm like, oh my God, this lady is incredible. So I have high hopes for that. And again, that doesn't get into the Bruen case going our way, but we can see Thomas has been,
when will
Thomas,
we hear about the Bruen case? Do we know what the timing is?
I think probably around, the arguments I think are set for November 3rd.
Okay.
I might try to go, but if I go, I'll probably have to go the night before and see if I can get in. It's limited. But I believe in June we would have a decision.
Right.
That's the target I left.
Yeah, it generally runs 6 or 7 months out. Okay, well, we've got to wrap up because there's another show coming right after us here. So, folks, I told you you would love Theresa Inacker. So Theresa Inacker, part of the DC Project, New Jersey, and so much more. So Theresa, thanks for joining us on Women for Gun Rights, and we'll see you around.
Thank you.